Peace and blessings, y'all. If you are new to my channel, I drop down to my heart space to give an intuitive message that is rooted in upliftment, empowerment, and clarity, right? I am a spiritual guide as well as a medium, channeler, and indigenous seer who is here to serve and to guide you, to be the tunnel at the end of the light for you. So if you would like to see more of my videos, please like and subscribe, and also share if it resonates with you. Okay, so for today's video, one of the things I wanted to talk about is healing. How healing is non-linear. What does that mean? That healing, for one, the whole aspect of healing is something that I don't necessarily agree with. I don't think we necessarily have to heal from anything. You are whole and you are perfect just as you are. Now, are there things that have possibly caused you to forget who you truly are and that have possibly disempowered you? Yes, perhaps. Absolutely. A lot of us go through that. We face traumas, we face difficult things, challenges, and sometimes we forget that at our core, we are beautiful, divine people, and we forget that at our core, we are love. So it's less about needing to heal and more about remembering to come back to source, remembering to come back to your center, remembering that anything that you've experienced or have gone through does not define you. It is not who you really are. Okay? And also remembering that our experiences are opportunities for us to learn. For us to learn, but also for us to use it as a source of power. All of our challenges, all of our life experiences, they're opportunities for us to alchemize. They're opportunities for us to look past the illusions, look past the shame, the fear, and to grasp the wisdom and its teachings. Because ultimately, we are students of life. And everything we experience is a teacher. What are you learning? Are you truly receiving the wisdom of everything that you have encountered? Are you letting your emotions cloud the wisdom in the experience? We often attach ourselves to anger, to disappointment, to resentment, and it blinds us from the truth. It disconnects us from divine source. But the funny thing is that it is within that frustration, that anger, and that resentment that we are being taught to return back to divine source. We are being taught how to return to love, how to truly embody unconditional love so that we can remain in divine alignment with God. Because this life is one of spiritual evolution. And the teachings are often very simple. That everything is love. To forgive. To release. And to remember that you are love. So often we have this perspective of healing, right? The healing journey. And sometimes I use this to describe my journey, right? Something that I had to heal from, but really it was something that I had to release, to remember. Oh, I remember who I am. This is who I am. This is me. Now I can release all this built up emotions, all this anger, all this bitterness, all this frustration that disconnected me from my truth and disconnected me from my power. But the interesting about it all is that within that journey of remembering, you find your power again. You find your power again. And you see truth. Truth in life, truth in your experiences, and truth in who you really are. Within my journey, part of what I had to process was sexual trauma. And for me, this showed up when I began to heal my body. I didn't consciously remember, but my body did. And it wasn't until I had began yoga. I remember I was experiencing a lot of hip pain that just wouldn't go away. And I began yoga and really releasing that tension within my hips. And it was through relaxing my body, through relaxing my nervous system, that my body felt safe enough to bring up the memory of the root of my hip pain. I didn't realize that the tension in my hips was related to sexual trauma until I relaxed myself enough to really feel it and to really release it. So although this was trauma that was deeply embedded in my cells, in my muscles, in my body, in my body's awareness, when these memories resurfaced, I experienced it as though it had just happened to me. So I began to have nightmares. I began to get triggered. I would have panic attacks. I would get intrusive flashbacks and visuals. And it became very difficult for me to have a sexual relationship. I was completely experiencing what had happened to me as though I was presently traumatized. And it was an incredibly difficult time for me because I felt alone. I felt like no one understood me. There were people who didn't believe me. There were people who didn't support me. They didn't understand what I was going through. And some of them just flat out denied that it ever happened. It was too painful for them to accept it. So instead of knowing how to support me as someone who was processing and releasing trauma, it only further re-victimized me. It only further shut me down from my ability to really express my truth after withholding this for so long. Because there was a part of me as a child who understood what happened and knew what happened and knew that it was wrong. But somewhere within that timeline, I was silenced. Silenced enough to tuck the memory away deep in the corners of my mind. And it didn't resurface until I was grown enough to realize that now I can protect myself. Now I can speak up for myself. Now I can release this in my power. And this took a while. It took me years. There was a part of me that felt deep shame. And I became disconnected from my sensuality and my sexuality. I became disconnected from my beauty. I no longer wanted to attract attention. So I dimmed myself. I made myself small. I stopped dressing in the same ways. I stopped dressing in these beautiful colors, in the style that would naturally flow out of me. I let myself go, and this led to a very, very deep depression. And within that depression, I lost weight. I lost the ability to care for myself. I was completely drained. I felt lost. I felt defeated, confused, emotionally distraught, and most of all, I felt lonely. And within this path, I started recognizing how sexual trauma is actually very common. So many women experience sexual trauma. They say 1 in 4 women experience sexual trauma. Which means out of 4 women that you know, out of 4 women in your family, 1 of them has been sexually assaulted. 1 of them has been raped. 1 of them has been harassed. 1 of them has been inappropriately touched. 1 of them has been fondled. One of them has been sexually manipulated. And that's just 1 out of 4 of the women that actually come forward to report. So I imagine those numbers are actually very different. But specifically within, I can only speak for my background, but it seems that within Hispanic culture, sexual trauma is something that has ran in the family. A lot of people that we may know have experienced it. And there has been this idea of needing to kind of sweep this under the rug. It becomes this unspoken truth that we don't speak about, that we don't talk about, that we don't share. So many women within lineages of family have been silenced from expressing what has been done to them. And this silence has led to deep pain. Pain that, because it cannot be expressed in words, has led to it being manifested into pain, into physical pain. And where do women hold sexual trauma? Within their hips, within their groin. Never realizing that pain in that region is due to sexual trauma. Sometimes women, because they have to numb their feelings towards these experiences because they don't have an outlet to express it, they then become numb from their bodies with the inability to experience pleasure, with the inability to be connected to their femininity, with the inability to be connected deeply to their sensuality. And then shame overtakes them.
At Minute Clinic, our board-certified nurse practitioners give you the...
And then shame overcomes. And the sad thing is that when you have healed, when you have released, right? We're focusing on release as opposed to healing. When you have released shame that comes from sexual trauma, you recognize it very easily in other women. You notice how their shoulders slouch over a bit. You notice how their bodies are tense. You notice how there's a dullness to their eyes. You notice how they may not take care of themselves very well. They may have low self-worth, low self-esteem. It may be uncomfortable for them to be in their bodies. They may feel uncomfortable dancing, really letting loose, really flowing. And so these women become robbed of their femininity. So the journey of healing, of releasing sexual trauma, because it's not yours to hold, becomes an invitation of true empowerment, where you get to own your power. You get to own your sexuality. You get to own your sensuality, because you recognize that it is not for the gratification of another person outside of you. It's for you. And you have the right to experience true pleasure. One of the things within my journey is that I started recognizing that pleasure is actually very sacred. That sexual intimacy is very sacred. We are not here to sexually objectify ourselves or pervert ourselves for the validation of others. We are here to be empowered in our bodies as women, understanding that our bodies are temples, that our bodies are sacred, and that our sensuality and our sexuality is our power. And it is also a source of creativity, just as much as it is a source of life, birthing life. That's what makes it so sacred and divine. But even if we do not use our sexuality to birth life, it is still birthing the life of creation, because the womb center, the sacral center, is our center of creativity. And when you are deeply connected to your sensuality, you are also deeply connected to your authentic creativity. And in your authentic creative expression is where you find your power. Peace and love, y'all.